release and what I'm going to be reading from. I want to thank you all for showing up today for this great announcement. You know, who's here with me is our assistant leader, Sabrina Lamar, and legislator Frank Keofalatse. Legislator Lee had a family emergency, so he was not able to attend at this time. But we just want to thank you all for coming out for our announcement. You know, today we're here to announce the submission of legislation that will have a significant impact on diversity in county contracts. This law is called the Gantt Law for utilizing a minority and women-owned business, seeks to address many of the obstacles that have precluded minority and women-owned business from receiving county contracts, a need that has been identified by the Monroe County Legislature. I also want to recognize Minority Leader of Democratic Caucus, Vince Felder. We thank you for standing with us today. Our government must be a leader in facilitating and eliminating the elimination of discrimination and racism. Too many times we have seen minority businesses prevented from participating in county procurements. I am proud to sponsor this legislation that will encourage minorities and women-owned enterprises to earn county contracts and further benefit our communities. The law is a multifaceted in its approach to expanding diversity in county operations and will address many of the underlying barriers to minority and women-owned enterprises. The purpose of the local law is to establish clear guidelines for what constitutes a minority and a woman-owned business enterprise, create a directory of minority and woman-owned business enterprise for the use by the county and contractors, expand the use of minority and woman-owned business enterprises in all areas of county procurements, and institute reporting guidelines. We want to conduct training for minority and women-owned businesses enterprise and set new goals for the use of minority and women-owned businesses in all county procurements. When we established this legislation, the new Black and Asian Democratic Caucus and my colleagues and I have vowed to make sincere efforts that would benefit people of color in our community. This year it has been my honor, as long as my colleagues' honor, to work on several legislative initiatives to expand and promote diversity in county government. The Gantt Law, which we are submitting today, goes beyond these past initiatives to address the root of the barriers to minority-owned business that seem to be discussed less frequently. The proposed local law is named in honor of the late Assemblyman David F. Gantt. Throughout his career, Gantt has been a vocal supporter and an advocate of promoting diversity and inclusion throughout our county. Much of the language used in this proposal for a local law is adopted from best practices already established by the New York State, Suffolk County, as well as Erie County in New York. We thank you, and is there any questions?
So in terms of you as a group, and pardon me, I don't think this is an internet question, what is the relationship with the other members of the county legislators? Are you now acting independently, or are you still attending all of those same meetings with all the other legislators, or is this now a branch out?
We are acting independently, and our whole focus is to focus on purpose over party. We want to make sure that community of colors have the same tools that everybody else have, and that our issues are forefront to the county exec as well as the county legislature.
Thank you.
What you talked about roots of the barriers for these minority and women-owned businesses. What are those roots?
So a lot of times, the reason why we put an important piece in, and that's the education piece of training minority businesses on how to gain contracts, how to seek them in the county. Right now, we do our job. We do a fair job, I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say we do a great job. I'm gonna say we do a fair job in making sure we deal with minority contracts when it comes to federal and state. However, this county has never had a plan like this in place to make sure that the county is doing the same thing. So how do we get that done? We put together an annual training piece to teach minority businesses on how to get contracts from the county.
And does it have to go the other way too? I mean, or is it teaching the minority businesses how to get in the queue for it? But the county, what's incumbent on the county to then look to see who is in that queue of businesses that they have to go to?
Say that again.
It goes one way. It's fine to say that you have to teach the businesses how to get the attention. But what about from the other way to make sure the county is looking at them? Are you changing anything as far as percentages of county contracts that have to go to?
Yes. So in the bill that we gave you, we have it outlined in there.
Right.
And so, you know, with the chief diversity officer that we're going to get, the diversity action plan committee, they will help to oversee that minority businesses are highlighted, as well as giving us a list of who they are, so that when we in the legislature meeting, and I know y'all hear us a lot say, well, have MWBE been considered? Now we would know that by the law that they are doing that type of job.
So there'll be some kind of checklist or something that they're
Yes.
going to have to go through when they're choosing
Yes.
who to do business with?
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you elaborate just a little bit on this kind of training that minority and women-owned businesses will need and go through, and how that will help them? Can you give us like a little more specific?
Yeah, so the purchasing department is normally how contracts are given out. And a lot of times, one of the biggest barriers that minority businesses have is the administrative piece. They don't know how to get into the mix to bid for contracts. And many of the business owners in which I spoke to, that's their biggest issue, is like, how do I apply for these grants? So working with the purchasing department and the administration, as well as the diversity advisory committee, we will make sure that we are giving every minority business and female-owned business an opportunity to come in and learn how to do this step by step so that they can put in for the bids.
Great, thank you.
Aren't there some organizations in town that already are promoting black-owned businesses? Are you in touch with them to work on their directory so you don't have to start from scratch? Just in building?
Oh, we definitely will be. We definitely will be.
Briefly, the question came up about the caucus, the Black and Asian Democratic Caucus. I think they're still Democrats. I have chosen to remain in the Democratic Caucus as the minority leader. And we know there's that manufactured controversy that the county executive is helping to fester. But we work together on these things. You know, we've all close to Mr. Gant, and if you know Mr. Gant, his history, he was a champion of MWBEs during his career, statewide. He put the 15A bill in that forced all state contracts, particularly in transportation, to have a percentage to go to minority contractors. So the idea is to say we want to identify businesses, help them grow, help them develop, and help them get into the pipeline. You know, the city has started a program where they're doing some of those things, and so we want to make sure that we are, because we spend a lot of money on construction, a lot of other things, not just construction, but IT services and building services and a whole bunch of other things that we contract out, and we want to make sure that we have companies who are able to get some of those contracts, because, you know, they are part of the county.
And just a quick correction, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, you referred to us as a group, and I just wanted to just change that as a caucus. We don't want to be looked at as a group, we're a caucus.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How will you avoid this becoming a pass-through? That the minority and women-owned businesses are actually going to be doing the job and not be funds of pass-through for other, kind of usual companies that get a lot of the county?
All right, right. One of the things is the Attorney General just put out a report on the school modernization program and how the MWBEs was not really receiving what they needed. They were circumventing the process itself. And once again, it comes back to us making sure that we have the Diversity Advisory Committee in place, as well as work with the administration, the Chief Diversity Officer, to ensure that we don't have what we would call cover-ups or facade minority businesses. We will make sure that they're in our pipeline and that we will certify them as actual MWBEs.
And there are ways to, even once the contracts are granted and the work is done, there are ways to look at the personnel records and other things to make sure that the companies who are getting the contracts are actually doing the work.
Right.
I think a lot of times people have been I won't say lazy, but just content to say they have those companies and have not done all the work that they needed to do to ensure it was actually being done properly. I think the first phase of the school modernization program, when the Attorney General had to come in, even the feds had to come in, you saw that, and you've seen that since Mayor Warren got in and the committee has changed, that those things have turned around somewhat because of the fact that you have somebody actually watching and saying, hey, make sure this is really an NWB doing the work and
Right.
not just somebody.
Not a facade.
Not just a facade off.
Right.
So.
I just one more question
Yeah.
for Legislator Flagler Mitchell. So to sum this all up, really, a simple question: what is your goal here? What do you hope that happens moving forward with this next step, and what do you hope to accomplish as a whole?
Well, we hope that we give opportunities to minority-owned businesses and communities of color. That's what the whole goal is. Because we know that when you have minority business, over 70% of their employees is people of color. And that gives folks an opportunities to be able to supply or be able to work on behalf of their family so that they can have a good living wage. And that's what the whole purpose of this is about.